Hello, college football fans. You know what time it is. It's another time for Urban's Take with yours truly, Tim May. Urban Meyer, welcome back to your show, my man.
Good to be with you, Tim.
You're three-time national championship winning coach, two at Florida, one at Ohio State. I go through that history every week, but I just want to, basically substantiate the fact that your opinions count for something. And then on top of that, you're going to a place you've only been once before this week, Lawrence, Kansas, for the Oklahoma and Kansas game. Are you fired up about it?
I am. I missed on Oklahoma. I think obviously a great respect for the coach and the program. We saw them up close and personal at Cincinnati, and they look like a good team. But I still, the personnel Texas has. But I'll tell you what, they're legit. I have them now as a Final Four potential. Obviously everyone does. But I'll tell you, Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback, I always thought he was a good player, but his performance in the Red River robbery there,
showdown,
was legendary.
Yeah.
I mean, and I talked to Coach Stoops about him. Obviously, Bob Stoops' son Drake is playing for the Sooners, and this guy is a little bit like Max Duggan. He's a JT Barrett. He's a freaking winner, man. He's tough as nails. They do some the play calling is really perfect for what his skill set is. So I'm telling you now, this Oklahoma team's fun to watch. And then also the Kansas story. I never quite understood why Lawrence, Kansas couldn't. First of all, it's a beautiful place. I'm not sure you've ever been there. I know it's basketball historically, but what a great we played a game there when I was at Bowling Green, and it's a gorgeous place, but they've had just really bad teams over the years. But this coach and staff and players have done an amazing job.
Yeah. I was going to say, it just shows if you put a little effort in, you can build a winning program almost anywhere, right? Well, maybe not almost everywhere, but you understand what I'm saying. There are football players to be had if you're willing to look for them, right?
Well, it's all about work ethic. It's about building a culture, which I understand is the staff and coach Leipold he's won at all levels. I don't know him. I think I'm going to go to practice on Friday is when I'm here, and I can't wait. I can't wait to shake the coach's hand and say, job well done. He took over a really bad place, and he's made it a great place.
Yeah. It's funny that if you look back through the years, man, that Kansas has been up and down. I remember back in the late 60s, they played in the Orange Bowl. I think it was against Penn State, as a matter of fact. And, I remember that was when they first came to my recognition in terms of knowing, hey, you can win there if you try hard. But the bottom line is
there's only a few people that remember the 1960s Kansas football, and you're one of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I do remember Mark Mangino. I remember Glenn Mason. They had some very good teams. Mangino had them in the Orange Bowl as well. And I am so happy for Kansas. I know a lot of people that are Kansas basketball fans, including my neighbor here in Florida. So they have Kansas flags hanging outside their house right now.
Well, good for them. They appear to be front runners. No, I'm just joking. Bottom line, of course, they fly those all winter too, don't they? You, Bill Self. Hey, speaking of up close and personal, did you get a chance to shake Ryan Day's hand after last week's win, Ohio State's win over Penn State? And you said in the Big Noon Kickoff. And by the way, the reason I brought up you going to Kansas, that's where Big Noon Kickoff is this week. But did you? You said it was going to be a street fight, and it was a street fight. Ohio State, Penn State, and the team with the better defense won the game. I don't know if you agree or not, but that's my opinion. What's your take? Has Ohio State's defense finally gotten your seal of approval?
Oh, they have. They're tremendous. That the quarterback, Drew Aller, had a bad day. He was misfiring, but he's also misfiring because he was pressured and because it was tight coverage. So Coach Knowles is a Coach of the Year candidate. He should be. That defense is legit. Penn State's defense is legit. So that was a little bit of a rock fight to watch it. But when you really watch it on videotape, you realize that it was, two very good teams. I don't know. Ohio State's offense still has so much more to do. They're still a work in progress after week 7. But all that matters is 7-0. They have, by the way, they have two. I know you know this. 2 top 10 wins, and the best resume in college football.
Yeah, and dude, they're headed to Wisconsin this week. Luke Fickell laying in the weeds. Just when you count Wisconsin out this year, they step up and they got to come from behind and win against Illinois last week, and with their backup quarterback, a transfer. I think all three of their quarterbacks on their roster, their primary quarterbacks are transfers. But you've been to Wisconsin, if I remember correctly. What are they walking into?
I think it's the second most difficult place to play in the Big Ten. It's a great. I usually don't like environments or like places. I love Madison, Wisconsin. I love the students. The jump around. You just have a lot of fun coaching there. I think we had 2 overtime wins there.
Yeah,
they had really good teams. It's become a little bit of a rivalry, Wisconsin versus Ohio State. I watched Wisconsin videotape, and they have a long way to go. They have a very creative play caller, Phil Longo, who was at North Carolina. I've known him a long time. He's one of the best out there. They have a redshirt quarterback that took him down on the final drive to beat Illinois. But I went and watched that tape, getting ready for this week, and they have a long. That's Wisconsin's had some really good teams. They're potentially a good team, but right now they have a long way to go.
Hey, real quick added question, Urban, I didn't have on my little list I sent you because I like for us to prep a little bit. But, you came into Ohio State way back in 2012 and changed the offense. I mean, drastically? Yeah, I think drastically. With the spread it out. Luke Fickell and Phil Longo are trying to do the same thing at a place that's been known for 3 yards in a cloud of dust, maybe as long as Ohio State was. How tough is that because I would think you don't have all the personnel you'd like to have on hand yet, right? I mean, how tough is that?
Well, if you remember our first year at Ohio State, we were not good on offense. We were actually really bad early on, and that was a transition. You had fullbacks and tight ends, and it was just more of a built for I formation style of offense, which was a great offense. I imagine Wisconsin, they're going through the same growing pains that we went through. So obviously we went from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to not good offenses, but great offenses. And it was because you were able to recruit some personnel in there that matches the style of play you want to play.
Yeah. And bottom line, you had a great quarterback, a guy named Braxton Miller, you could just hit default button, right? And he would run around and make people miss, right?
I still think one of the undervalued players ever to play that at Ohio State. I mean, I first of all, I'm very biased, but we went 12-0. I'm telling you, that's a 6-16 without Braxton Miller. That's how good a player.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Kenny Guyton Jr. gets named the offensive coordinator in place of interim offensive coordinator, whatever you call it, at Arkansas. Kenny Guyton Jr., who stepped in and did some good things for you, as a backup quarterback way back when. Arkansas 3 points against Mississippi State. But you think Kenny Guyton Jr.'s always had that edge to him, Eddie, from a coaching standpoint?
Oh, he's a coach on the field. I love him. We called him Smooth Jazz or something like that. Went
cool
out to
jazz,
Cal Berkeley and beat Cal, and I love the guy. We all love him. The come from behind win over Purdue. You get the ball down 8, no timeouts, 45 seconds left. He takes us down, scores 8 points. We win overtime. So I texted Kenny. He hasn't hit me back yet. I imagine he's a little busy in his first coordinator job. So I speak on behalf of Buckeye Nation. We love Kenny Guyton, and congrats.
Yeah, I've DM'd with him a few times on Twitter back earlier in the season and stuff, just because he's one of the great guys we ever run into. Hey, nobody seems to be able to jump into the lead in the Heisman race and stay there this year, and Michael Penix Jr., hey, let's face it, they had an awful offensive outing at Arizona State last week. And, now I'm looking here, and way back when there was a former coach named Urban Meyer who kept bringing up Marvin Harris Jr., perhaps being the best player in college football, with maybe should be getting some recognition in that Heisman race. And suddenly now his name, 11 catches against Penn State, a touchdown, turns out to be the winning touchdown in that game, et cetera. But are you looking at this? Does Marvin Harrison Jr. have a chance?
Yeah, the Heisman, from my understanding, I'm not a voter. I've been around it a lot. I've been around some Heisman winners and runner-ups, et cetera. My understanding is the best player in college football, and the best player in college football for 2 years now is Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know if he'll get it. If I had a vote and it's mid-season or week 7 or 8, I'd write his name down. as the winner of the Heisman Trophy. So there's still a lot of football. I wish the Heisman would they push it back even further, so you could see how they perform, especially when the playoffs. When this goes to a 12-team playoff, you can't give that Heisman before the playoffs. I don't understand that whole process, but I think times have changed, and so that award should change. That should be in January. It's too big it's a great award.
Yeah.
It's a great event. However, it goes to the best player in college football, and the best player in college football, to me, plays the best in the biggest games. And those big games are still to be had.
If you had a vote in the Heisman and it was done the way you just said it after the 2014 season, would Zeke Elliott have gotten your vote, or would Cardale Jones have gotten your vote? You know what I'm talking about? The most incredible postseason that I've ever covered. 3 straight wins, Big Ten championship game, and then the first college football playoff championship. Which one of those two would have gotten your vote?
Yeah, I think just body work, you got to give it to Zeke. But the other one deserves a statue. I've said that over and over again.
Yeah.
The other guy that's playing really well is the guy up north.
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy, my goodness. I mean, his growth as a quarterback in the last 3 years. I mean, he's playing himself into the high first round.
Hey, I wanted to get your take on this. Speaking of place you've coached before, Utah, giant killer, hosting Oregon this week. As I call it, it's a battle of the once beatens trying to stay viable in the Pac-12 race, the last Pac-12 race. Because the 2 best teams in the Pac-12 play again for the Pac-12 championship. What's your take on that game, man? Oregon, of course, it's a must-win game for Oregon, but heck, it's a must-win game for Utah, going for a 3rd straight Pac-12 championship. What number one, playing that game in Rice-Eccles? You helped make that a jumping joint way back when, and then number 2, Utah coming off that great win with Bryson Barnes at quarterback last week at USC. So, what's your take?
Yeah, I just watched it actually this morning because I might do something on Big Noon. We have that game. Joe Cladden, Gus Johnson, and Jenny are going to be there for it. I've said many times, Kyle Whittingham's one of the best coaches in college football. No, he's the best. He's the best coach in college football. It's a 3rd-string quarterback, Bryson Barnes, that if you watch that drive, he threw a pick 6 in the 4th quarter. They didn't score a couple of times. USC takes the lead, and this guy takes him on a 2-minute drive. He runs over a safety. He scrambles puts him in field goal range after a penalty. It's one of the great. I mean, it's really why you watch college football. I mean, Kyle's comment about Caleb Williams is a Heisman, which he is. Caleb Williams is an incredible player.
Yeah.
And then they have their Heisman. We have a pig farmer from Utah. I wish we were doing that game because I wanted to go watch him and shake his hand at quarterback, because you know how I love toughness now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was go back and watch it. And I think the viewer, go back and watch that last drive.
Oh, I did.
And when he ran over the safety, I think it might have been the second last drive. He ran over the safety, but the last one, he runs 30 yards on a play that's dead, and they kick a field goal and beat USC.
Yeah. People wonder why you go after players like Braxton Miller and guys like that. I mean, not the classic, Bryson Barnes is not a classic drop back passer, et cetera, but what a gamer. I mean, that was one of the great plays of college football this year, the one you just spoke, because all of a sudden he hit the sideline and boom, it's like he went into another gear. Where did this come from, right?
And this is after, if you watch the play closely, when he hit the safety,
yeah,
the safety takes himself out of the game. Bryson, you can tell, is stunned. That's it. That was a train wreck of 2 people.
Yeah.
And he gets up slowly, but the way he plays, I just love to shake a guy's hand, because instant admiration for that guy.
Hey, before we move on, Urban, to the last thing, I want to ask you, so what is Kyle Whittingham's secret? Does he have a secret? I mean, in terms of just getting guys to play. I mean, the thing that stands out to me about Utah is they never back down, they never flinch, and they're there 4 quarters. You know what I mean? And because a lot of times you look at them, they don't look spectacular. But what do you think? How does Kyle get that out of these guys?
Well, I'm very biased. I mean, I'm like,
I know you are.
I mean, I got hired there, and Kyle interviewed for the job when I did, and everybody told me don't hire him. He's kind of a unique personality, and I had no plan of hiring. And then once I got hired and I settled down, I realized how good they were on defense. And then I went to dinner with him and his wife, and I'm sitting there looking at like, what am I, stupid? You know, this guy knows the conference. He knows the personnel on our team. He's a good person. He's a guy that, yeah, he's a little different personality, but so am I. I mean, very respectful. And the two of us, I can't imagine a better working relationship, even to this day. That's how close I am with him. That's the respect that I have for him. And he's just what he is. He's culture and discipline. If you said, and he's tough as nails, man.
Yeah.
His father was an NFL coach for a long time. And I mean, Fred Whittingham, one of the toughest cats. I met him before he passed away.
Yeah.
I can go on and on about Kyle Whittingham and what he's done, but he's not one of the best. He's the best coach in college football.
Yeah. You can definitely make that argument. Well, hey, let's go to the checkmate moment. Mine was Ohio State running what they call that mesh play. You remember back in 2017, y'all, Ryan Day showed up, and all of a sudden y'all showed that in the season opener at Indiana, won that game. Most people remember J.K. Dobbins from that game, freshman debut as a running back. I just remember the mesh play where the two receivers come across the middle and another guy drops in behind. And so you got three possibilities there of somebody breaking wide open. They run it to Marvin Harris Jr., who you think is the best player in college football. He gets a step and a half on the Penn State defender. Boom, catches the ball over the middle, turns it up the left sideline, 19-yard play for the winning touchdown. That, to me, was the checkmate moment in that game. What was your checkmate moment, or do you agree?
I think in that game, and then also the one where the quarterback Bryson ran against USC. But going back to, I did something on Big Ten Network talking about the script, and the script. I can't speak for every team, but I think most teams have it, and they're openers, and they're the best team. They're the plays that the coordinator feels most comfortable with, and the quarterback. And number three, it's got to get your best players involved. You realize against Purdue and against Penn State, Marvin Harris Jr. touched the ball half the reps. At one point, I think it was 8 plays into it, he had 4 catches. So
yeah,
I think Ohio State is doing an incredible job. Get the best part of the ball because you're sick. Early in the year, he wasn't getting the ball as much, and I'm sure they made, Ryan's too good a coach and Hartline to get this guy the ball.
Yeah.
You can't, in my opinion, you can't let that guy touch the ball enough. If he touches the ball 20 times in a game, to me, that's I've had guys, Percy's the closest thing I had to a Marvin Harrison Jr. And you're sick after the game if that guy hasn't touched the ball because, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 times, he's fine in the end zone. That's how good a player he is.
Yeah. He had 11 catches on Saturday. This past Saturday, 10 were for first downs at least. That's a pretty damn good stat. And number 2, like I agree with you. Everybody goes, well, he's a wide receiver. I go, well, if you had a great running back, remember back in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, 80s, you got a great running back. You feed him the ball, right? I mean, he's superior, and nothing wrong with that strategy, right?
No, I mean, that's the essence. I always tell people the head coach has 2 responsibilities: health and safety of the players, and number 2, get the best players the ball.
Yeah.
And, I think Ohio State's doing a magical job. And what is there, 5, 6, 7, 8 games left?
Yeah.
I hope they're putting him in the cold tub every week because they're going to use him. I mean, he is the best player in college football.
Yeah. Hey, use him because he's probably not going to be here next year. Yeah. There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's your latest episode of Urban's Take with Urban Meyer. Appreciate you letting me tag along, Urban. We'll be back again next week about this same time. But Urban, any last thoughts going into this week of football? As you and I texted after the Ohio State game on Saturday late in the evening, there doesn't seem to be that super team, right? I mean, it's almost like anybody can beat anybody to a certain extent this year, right?
Well, I asked that question to a couple of colleagues, and I said, do you think, at first you thought the transfer portal would make the rich richer in NIL? I think it's the opposite. I think it's creating parity, and I watch a lot of teams. I don't see that great. I see teams with flaws, and everybody has flaws. But there's been teams that you're just like the Alabama team a few years ago. I just never saw a flaw. I watch Alabama now, and they're not a great team, but then maybe they are the best, or not them, but there's just a minute. I think the 2 teams that have caught my eye on videotape are Oregon and Texas, where I just like, wow.
Yeah.
But then they lose. So, and then you think Washington, and Washington stumbles, or almost stumbled. So
Yeah.
I don't see a clear-cut Heisman, and I don't see a clear-cut national champion, or even top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened in the last 15 years? No.
Yeah. I mean, it's been somebody. And the funny thing about it is all of a sudden Alabama comes out and just tattoos Tennessee in the second half last week. Did they get their act together, right? I think everybody in the Southeastern Conference is worried about that, right?
If you count Tennessee out, you haven't paid attention in the last decade.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's Urban Meyer. I'm Tim May. And until next week, Urban, we'll see you then.
Great hanging with you, bro.